The Bahamas making significant strides in its commitment to explore alternative forms of energy. Good evening, everyone. I'm Keishla Adderley.
And I'm Charisma Robinson. Thanks so much for joining us. Prime Minister the Right Honorable Perry Christie and his counterparts from the region and Central America are meeting with U.S. Vice President Joe Biden through the Caribbean and Central America's Energy Summit in Washington.
Now, the Environment Minister is also attending those talks in D.C. And tonight, Clint Watson tells us that the Environment Minister and a U.S. government official are outlining what the Bahamas has done and the importance of switching to renewable forms of energy.
In a region where the cost of energy is one of the highest in the world, the need to migrate to renewable forms, despite the challenges, is paramount. Since a year ago, when the Summit on Energy with U.S. Vice President Joe Biden convened, the Bahamas has made notable progress in its phased migration from fossil fuels.
By advancing new legislation, by creating the independent regulator for the energy sector, being IRCA, we have the legislation that makes renewable energy sources legal, grid tie connection being legal, and we're now obviously working out the framework for those things. So we've made a tremendous progress, all of which now puts us in a position to be able to advance bankable renewable projects. And
that's the next phase of international engagement, according to Environment Minister, the Honorable Ken Dorsett. In fact, he says private sector engagement will be critical. He believes the sector in the Bahamas needs greater clarity on funding mechanisms, as there are lots of avenues worldwide.
Access to finance is a major issue for us. And so we're hoping, having had the meetings with OPIC, we're certainly sure that the Americans are ready to invest in the Bahamas.
The recent dip in electricity costs is primarily a result of decreasing fossil fuel costs. However, he notes that Bahamas Power and Light has been mandated to introduce alternative forms of energy like solar for the Family Islands and also reduce electricity further. The United States appears to be in this with the Bahamas. Deputy Assistant Secretary of State Juan Gonzalez, in an interview with ZNS News, alluded to the fact that he recently visited the Bahamas and got to see firsthand the energy challenges we face with frequent blackouts and high energy costs.
These challenges are not unique to the Bahamas, and we are working with the government to actually trying to find a way to tackle these challenges, and they're difficult. They're difficult challenges. You have not just Clifton Pier. I don't want to single them out because that's the only I visited. That's why I'm mentioning it. Is that there are more efficient opportunities and fuel sources that the government can count on, and what our focus has been is trying to support the government's efforts to actually expand those energy resources, to promote access to finance, to encourage additional private sector investment. But it's not something that you resolve from one day to the other. We understand the government's been working actively on this, and we're supporting those efforts.
Gonzalez says while Caribbean countries face individually different challenges, one thing that's common is a heavy expense of fossil fuels.
Government and the private sector in the Bahamas wants to try to advance efforts that would decrease the reliance of the country on just diesel. And it's something that in the end of the day will ensure the prosperity of the Bahamas, which is, I got to tell you from my visit, one of the most beautiful countries I've ever seen.
And USAID also announcing that beginning from now until March 2017, they'll be accepting applications for grant funding. It's for a maximum of $1 million for each particular project. At the State Department in Washington, D.C., Clint Watson, ZNS Network News.